Calabria is the poorest region of Italy and has long been ignored by tourists. It is, however, incredibly beautiful. Recently, Calabria has become more popular. It is an attractive destination for anyone in love with the sun and authenticity. It offers the visitor intact forests, dream beaches, breathtaking scenery, and splendid towns. Its culture is still very much alive today, with its Aragonese and its Greek and Norman influences. Calabria is the very quintessence of Italy. It remains beautiful and authentic in the hearts of its inhabitants. Calabria is located in southwest Italy, on the toe of the boot facing Sicily. Our journey begins in Tropea, on the west coast, called the Coast of the Gods. Tropea is often called the Pearl of the Tyrrhenian. It's the favorite destination of all those who love Calabria. The town is famous for its Norman, Byzantine and Aragonese style houses. Many are constructed on the sides of the cliffs, like a balcony overlooking the sea below. Legend recounts that the city was founded by Hercules, who came to Italy to rest after his legendary 12 labors. Originally a commercial Roman port, Tropea was often invaded. The town flourished under Byzantine and Norman rule. Today, the buildings in the historic centre still bear witness to Tropea's turbulent history. For a long time, the town was abandoned, but today it has once again regained its splendour and is the pride of all Calabrians. You need only wander through the maze of the town's small streets to discover its many restaurants, all so charmingly Italian. One of the main reasons that Tropea has become such an attractive destination is its many culinary specialties, such as the famous Tropea red onions, so soft and sweet that they are even made into jam. Ciccio Russo runs this small grocery shop in the centre of town. Amongst his clients, he is proud to include the Pope himself.
They're sweet because they grow on the seashore. Their flavour is enriched thanks to the potassium and the nitrogen. That's what makes the onion so sweet and gives it its red colour. This is a late variety. It's the last harvest. It's a long onion. We store them in braids up until November. I'll explain why it's braided. The braid isn't to make them look pretty. I'll show you. The braid is the soul of the onion. The onion is attached to the braid by its stem. When it's picked, the onion dies and begins to rot. And it rots from the inside. With a braid, it remains good until November. You can do a lot of things with onions. You can eat them raw, but we also make our famous onion mousse. This is like a sweet jam that's served with cheese. We also make sweet onion marmalade to serve with fish or meat. And finally, we make onion pate. Onion pate differs from onion jam in being salty. We use it on toast and serve it as an antipasto. It can also be put on spaghetti.
Tropea is also known for its famous nduja, a type of local tripe sausage that's very spicy. And there are many other treasures to be discovered. The Baroque Cathedral of Maria Santissima di Romagna was founded by the Normans in the 12th century. It's built entirely of volcanic lava. Facing the church is the Museo Diocesano, inaugurated in 2004. The museum contains magnificent 18th century paintings by the masters of the Calabrian school, such as the famous Nicola Manzelli. But it is the room containing the liturgical objects that is the most exceptional. With sumptuous accoutrements such as these gold crowns encrusted with precious stones. But the masterpiece of the collection is this magnificent 15th century silver-gilt bishop's crozier encrusted with enamel. This finely worked object is remarkable. This extraordinary full-sized statue, made of solid silver, represents the martyrdom of Saint Dominic in the 6th century. Perched at 50 meters altitude on a rocky outcrop, the monastic church of Santa Maria dell'Isola dominates the town. This small church dates from the Byzantine era. Legend recounts that in 1638, the Virgin appeared before the Bishop of Calabria to warn him of an imminent earthquake. Just in time for the inhabitants to find safety. Behind the church, a small garden of olive trees and cacti invite the visitor to dream and meditate while contemplating the horizon. Tropea never ceases to fascinate visitors. It's the Dolce Vita, a time for holidays. At the foot of the town, a magnificent beach of fine sand borders an azure sea. It's called Aquamarina Beach. It's one of the most popular beaches in Calabria. Many Italian families come here to enjoy the 25-degree water and the pristine white sand. Swimming, paddle boating, surfing or enjoying the tourist boats. Summer visitors find countless pastimes so as to make their stay an unforgettable memory. North of Tropea is the charming little town of Pizzo. Overlooking the sea, the Castello Murat is a fortified castle that was built in 1492 to protect the town from Saracen pirates. Pizzo is a prized tourist destination, perhaps thanks to its famous Tartufo. This ice cream dessert was created in the 1950s by a young pastry chef from Messina, Don Pipo. Tartufo di Pizzo is special in that it's shaped by hand, as Luano explains.
Today I'm going to show you how a classic, real and original Tartufo di Pizzo is made. It's hazelnut ice cream with a melted chocolate center. A tartufo is made entirely by hand. Once molded, the interior is filled with room-temperature whipped chocolate. It's then well wrapped. Once it's at the right temperature, it's powdered with cocoa and then covered with melted chocolate. And now the final touch. And voila, the Tartufo di Pizzo is ready to serve.
Outside of town, there is an extraordinary place. It's unique, the Piedigrotta church. Inside this cave, a good 100 statues are carved into the tough rock. They recount a legend that is well known to all natives of Calabria. In 1665, a sailboat from Naples and its crew were surprised by a strong and sudden storm. The sailors gathered together in the captain's cabin, which contained a painting of the Madonna di Piedigrotta, and they began to pray. They promised the Virgin that if they were rescued from the storm, they would build a chapel and dedicate it to her. The ship sank, but the sailors swam ashore. Determined to keep their promise, they dug a small chapel into the rock and placed the sacred image there. "200 years later, at the end of the 19th century, two men from Pizzo, Angelo Barone and his son Alfonso, resumed the task and worked for over 40 years. They enlarged the cave and sculpted these superb and moving statues representing the life of Jesus. Today, the church has become a place of pilgrimage for anyone visiting Pizzo. A visit to the magnificent granite cliffs of Capo Vaticano should not be missed. They're one of the most wonderful sights in Calabria. With its small secluded beaches, its impressive rock formations and the crystalline waters of the sea, the Capo Vaticano is extraordinarily beautiful, and it's worth a journey in itself. The cape has given its name to a liqueur, Amaro Vecchio del Capo, which is made in the village of Limpardi by the Caffo brothers. Today, they run an ultra-modern factory that produces 9 million bottles a year. But it all started in this small building 100 years ago. It has become a private museum recounting the history of this extraordinary local success story. Giuseppe Caffo emigrated from Sicily to Calabria at the beginning of the 20th century in order to make and sell bottles of his eau de vie. He could never have imagined then the success that he was later to achieve. A tireless worker, he studied the properties of the Calabrian mountain plants and rediscovered the recipe of an elixir that had been made by the monks of the region. After a difficult start, he finally made a fortune during the end of Prohibition in the United States. Amaro Vecchio del Capo is a digestive made from 29 aromatic plants, such as juniper, mimosa, and myrrh, to be taken in moderation, of course. Sebastian Caffo, Giuseppe's great-great-grandson, now runs the family distillery. And even if the composition remains a secret, he's going to tell us a little about its mystery.
This is the smell of cinnamon. This is the cinnamon. It's like music, a music of odors, a music of taste. And this is my organ. There I have all the aromatic notes.
The plants are infused in large vats before being distilled.
We're in the distillation room. The stills are double boiler vapor stills. This means that the vapor that's produced in the boiler passes through the tubes to heat the product that's being distilled. The alcohol vapor gradually rises into this dome. It then passes through these tubes and arrives at the fractional column.
At this stage, the alcohol is still a gas. It's then cooled to form a liquid before passing drop by drop into this alcometer, which measures its strength.
The dominant flavor is citrus, both for the odor as for the taste. But there's also the freshness of herbs, such as licorice, mint, and anise. These are the three principal ingredients of Amaro del Capo. In order to obtain the best flavor, a very low temperature is needed, about minus 20 degrees. And that's why I suggest that you always store your bottle in the freezer.
At the entrance to the Strait of Messina is the charming little fishing village of Sila, founded by the Greeks in the 5th century BC. The town is divided by a rock crest that splits the town into two separate districts. On one side, there's San Giorgio, with its San Rocco church dedicated to the local patron saint. And on the other side, there's Cianalea, the fisherman's district, with its colourful houses lining the shoreline. The town has been known since antiquity. Homer mentions it in the Odyssey. It was here that the hero Ulysses confronted the two sea monsters, Charybdis and Sila. Nevertheless, life is pleasant in Sila. In the fisherman's district, the streets gently slope towards the sea. It's well known for its seaside restaurants on stilts that prepare freshly caught fish, including swordfish. Since time immemorial, navigating the Strait of Messina has been dangerous, and for a long time, it was also a haunt of pirates. In the 12th century, the Ruffo family, once the princes of Naples, built a fortress on the promontory that dominates the straits. Their coat of arms can still be seen. In 1783, a terrible earthquake hit Calabria and partially destroyed the Castello Ruffo. But the fortifications held, and today the castle accommodates a lighthouse and a museum that recounts the history of the swordfish hunters of Sila. It was from these small boats called Cianalea that the fishermen harpooned these giant fish, some 2 meters in length and weighing up to 100 kilos. The fishermen were guided by a lookout perched on a tall pole that sometimes was nearly 20 meters high. The last stage of our visit to the coast of the gods is Reggio de Calabria, the largest town in the region. The historic centre was rebuilt after the earthquake of 1908 by the architect Battista Mori. He designed a modern town with large open spaces, such as the Piazza Italia near the governor's palace. The entire face of the city was changed. Numerous prestigious buildings were built to the glory of a new Italy. An Italy that had been unified half a century earlier by Garibaldi. Also from this period, this is the Francesco Ciglia Theatre, constructed in 1931, and the Pelicano Palace, built in 1922. The impressive Basilica di Maria Santissima Assunta in Cielo was built on the Piazza Duomo. It is guarded by two magnificent statues representing St. Stephen of Nicaea, the first Bishop of Reggio, and St. Paul the Apostle. The cathedral had already been destroyed several times by earthquakes. It had been entirely rebuilt in the 17th century. On each side of the main entrance are cast bronze doors dedicated to the Madonna. A series of escalators rises towards the upper town, to the popular districts of the Castello Aragonese, which was built nearly 1500 years ago. Here, there are fishmongers who are supplied every morning in fish and shellfish from the bountiful waters of the Strait of Messina. Here we are in the Colonna establishment, which has been going for 3 generations.
abbiamo una fritturina di pesce.
We have white bait,
Di ove piccole. Poi abbiamo gli
and
Elixir,
here's skipjack tuna,
un pesce pescato
troll-lined.
a traina. Poi abbiamo i totani.
and here we have cuttlefish.
Il pesce pesce.
And I have petinas, also called the mousefish,
Detto surici.
as well as sea bream and jacks.
Poi abbiamo le cavagnole. Poi abbiamo
And
i
here are the
cavalloni
trap-caught prawns.
che
They're
sono
fished
le
locally.
barche nostre locali.
In the cooler air of the late afternoon, when the heat has dissipated, take a stroll along the seafront promenade, the Lungomare di Falcomata, and admire the works of art, such as these three sculptures by Roma Rubberama. On the avenue reigns the magnificent abandoned Villa Genoese's Abbey. Further along the promenade is Reggio's emblematic Arena dello Stretto Theatre, facing Sicily. On the point, a bronze statue of the goddess Athena protects the town that was the very first Greek colony in Italy. At the beginning of the evening, the locals like to meet on the seafront to see the sunset. To rehearse a few dance steps like these pupils from a local school are doing, or to take a little exercise. Reggio is the very end of Italy. The centre of Calabria, with its wild spaces and picturesque villages, has become a prized destination for all lovers of Italy. Welcome to San Giovanni in Fiore. Founded in the 12th century by the famous Calabrian abbot Gioacchino da Fiore. This small town is centred around the monastery that was built during the Middle Ages in pure Romanesque style. In the nearby museum, there are old spell books as well as magnificent illuminated manuscripts. These are considered as one of the most important and beautiful collections of figurative theological works from the Middle Ages. On the altar, sculpted wooden angels, more lifelike than real, symbolize the local youth and the hope that it represents. While many of the young Calabrians leave and go north in search of employment, Giovanni Cuzzo and Maria Isabella Mazzei decided to remain and make a living from local crafts. Giovanni makes beautiful jewelry. He welcomes us into his workshop and demonstrates the fabrication of a gold pendant that is typical of the region.
Il metallo va riscaldato per renderlo poi
You have to heat the metal to make it malleable.
malleabile.
There.
Ora è arrivata a temperatura.
There, it's nearly the right temperature.
Come si può vedere,
It's beginning to turn slightly red.
Ok, ora abbiamo appena traforato.
I have a disc of yellow gold that I'm going to transform into a hemisphere to make the structure onto which I'm then going to place the precious tiny pearls.
Gli accessori seguenti, tra cui le pietre
Then I insert in its place a natural ruby.
Posso? Ok.
This is how I make the rounded form of the half circle.
Possiamo creare questa forma tonda. Posizionare
I
la
position the
pallina
support for the
dalla
precious
fessura
stone
e scaldare.
and I seal it.
Ora passiamo alla scelta
Then I
del
choose a little ruby
che dobbiamo inserire all'interno
and place it into the half circle of
del
gold.
nostro gioiello. Scegliamo un colore.
I chose one of a beautiful color
E lo posizioniamo
and I position it
nel castone.
on the mounting.
Ok. Creando
I make circles of pearls that are
cornice
nice and
uniforme
even.
a tutto il ciondolo.
In Calabria, you give a jewel like this to a young bride to wish her a happy life. San Giovanni in Fiore likes artists. Just a few streets away from the jewelers, we have an appointment with a master tapestry maker, an outstanding designer unique in his trade. With talent and precision, he reproduces the paintings of the great early 20th century Impressionists, painters such as Monet, Degas and Pizarro. He inherited these skills from his father, who was also a master tapestry maker. His name is Domenico Caruzzo, and his extraordinary tapestries are sold all over the world.
At the moment, I'm working on a tapestry made up of a series of bracelets, using threads of broom, a typical perennial plant, found in regions all over the Mediterranean. It's in flower now in Sila Park, producing magnificent yellow blooms.
Domenico works patiently and precisely, very much like a painter. He chooses and places his threads of color carefully on his canvas. When he's working on a tapestry, time loses all importance for him.
I don't weave rapidly as most do. Time finds a pace of its own. The canvas is finished when it's time. It comes to life through a series of loving gestures.
Domenico's canvases are veritable works of art. It takes him months, sometimes years, to complete them. Cosenza is the emblematic city of central Calabria. The magnificent Aragonese buildings found in the historic center were built on the flanks of Pancrazio Hill. In the 12th century, the Spanish colonizers built an entire town dedicated to art and culture. Even today, Cosenza is an open-air museum. Local artists exhibit their works in the labyrinth of its tiny, narrow streets. There are many high spots of culture, including the Diocesan Museum, the Rendano Theatre opposite the Governor's Palace, the Palace of Culture, the classical Telesio Secondary School that looks like a Greek temple, and the National Gallery, an imposing building dating from the 16th century and that houses Calabrian masterpieces by the great Calabrian painters such as Pietro Negroni, Marco Cadisco, and Francesco Cozza. But art is to be found in the religious buildings as well, in churches such as the Romanesque Santa Maria Assunta Cathedral built in 1222. This beautiful chapel of white and red marble houses a treasure. At its center is a sacred icon venerated by all Calabrians, the Virgin of Pilero, to whom many miracles are attributed. In the alcoves, there are works by the painter Achilles Bozzi, including the famous painting of the Virgin's Wedding. At the entrance to the cathedral stands the marble sarcophagus of Henry VII, a Germanic emperor who subdued Calabria in the Middle Ages. On the other side of the river spreads the new town, but the love of art is still very much present here. The Corso Mazzini is the town's main shopping street. The pedestrian area boasts bronze statues by famous artists such as Giacometti. The restaurant terraces gradually fill up. It's time to discover one of Cosenza's specialities, dried figs. The best in town are to be seen displayed in this little grocery shop run by Mr. Bertini, who's been a fig producer for 3 generations.
These are the famous crochettes, traditional crochettes that we make here. I'll take off the packaging. We make them all year round. Crochettes are made of figs formed into the shape of a cross. Walnuts are inserted by hand, and then it's all put in the oven. These figs are among the best in the world because they're very luscious, and the seeds are very small. Delicious. A crochet is 4 figs in the shape of a cross stuffed with walnuts. The walnuts are inside. They're very sweet. And they're very good.
"15 kilometers distant from Cosenza, the Sila National Park provides a breath of fresh air. It's been a protected area since 1968. Huge forests are home to more than 175 species of animals, including wolves, the park's emblem. In the mountains are artificial lakes. Secchita Lake is the largest in the region. At an altitude of 1,000 meters, it's 7.5 kilometers long. Its waters are full of fish, to the delight of local fishermen. Its sandy shores have been turned into agricultural land. In the center of the lake is an island used for grazing. In this bucolic landscape, cows graze peacefully. It's a little paradise of wilderness for cows and men alike. In the heart of Sila National Park is the perched village of Longobucco. With its roofs of rounded shingles and its stone houses, it is typical of Aragonese architecture. Longobucco's history goes back to antiquity. The village was mentioned in Homer's Odyssey under the name Temesa. The region is famous for its silver mines, exploited by the Romans to mint their coins. In the 19th century, the area was known for its bandits who scoured this region, whose poverty led to the first waves of emigration from Calabria to the United States and Argentina. But Longobucco is also renowned for silk weaving. Situated at an altitude of 780 meters, the village was ideally placed for the cultivation of mulberry plane trees and silkworms. The tradition is still very much alive in the little workshop of Eugenio Celestino, whose family has perpetuated this unique skill for 3 generations. In the 1950s, dozens of weavers worked here. Today, there is only one left. but she's still using the same techniques. Weaving by hand requires a great deal of patience and precision, as workshop owner Signora Celestino tells us.
The weaver's gesture is very important because that's what gives finesse to the piece that he or she is weaving. It's manual work, and like all manual work, it's slow and time-consuming. Especially if we want to get beautiful, high-quality results. Because for us, weaving is a form of art.
On the ground floor, this little museum presents the history of weaving in Longobucco, a history much longer than that of silk weaving itself. In the past, weaving was done using threads of broom, a plant which grows in abundance in the mountains of this region. The results were astounding. The museum has a wonderful collection of hand-woven cloths, the Celestino family treasure.
This is a very old piece. You see, you can see the date it was woven, 1899. It was made on our traditional loom, using the flat stitch technique, and hemmed with a beautiful trim that reflects the colors in the pattern. And it's a very special pattern, the famous jumping deer with really extraordinary movement. You can really feel the free spirit of the deer. And this is all part of our land.
These precious weavings were intended as gifts at important occasions, like weddings. Catanzaro is the capital of Calabria. Called the city between two seas, the Tyrrhenian and the Ionian, it is not often visited by tourists. And yet, it is an authentic city that offers lovely walks in its historic centre. Like Cosenza, Catanzaro esteems artists, as evidenced by the statue of the quarryman sculpted in the 50s by the artist Giuseppe Rito. The city exhibits many works of modern art, but to discover the most emblematic, the visitor must go to the Park of Biodiversity. This is the green lung of Catanzaro. It was initially designed as an eco-museum. It features many of the greatest European contemporary artists, such as Belgian Marc Quinn and Italian Michelangelo Pistoletto. These unique works of art fit perfectly into the vegetation. We continue our trip heading towards the Ionian Sea. On the way, the visitor simply must stop off at Serra San Bruno, a small mountain town with discreet charm, nestled in the Serra Regional Park. It was built in the Middle Ages to accommodate the many workers and peasants who came to work at the nearby Abbey. The houses in the center of town are characterized by granite portals, loggias of sculpted wood, and wrought iron balustrades. It is an architecture not unlike the villages of northern Italy. Serra San Bruno gives pride of place to its street artists who brighten up the town with their colorful paintings. A few kilometers north, Santo Stefano del Bosco Abbey is closed to the public. It has housed a community of Carthusian monks for almost 1,000 years. but you can visit the Setosa Museum in the Abbey building to lift the veil on the secluded life of the religious. The Abbey was established in 1095 by Saint Bruno, a German monk who founded the Carthusian order. Of noble birth, he was destined for a great ecclesiastical career. He was to become Archbishop of Reims, but instead he decided to become a hermit in the mountains of Calabria. 1,000 years later, the monks of the Abbey still follow the precepts of Saint Bruno, leading a recluse and Spartan life entirely devoted to prayer and meditation. The monks live in self-sufficiency and produce everything they need in their workshops, including, of course, the Elixir of the Carthusian Monastery, an alcoholic fortifier based on medicinal plants. The museum also displays a beautiful hand-embroidered chasuble, as well as sculptures and paintings of the Abbey's monks. On its east coast, Calabria looks a little like Greece. Despite the length of its coastline, the region is more rural than maritime. The little city of Stilo is a former Greek colony. Like many Calabrian cities, it was built inland on a rocky spur, overlooking the sea from which came invaders. Stilo has been called the City of the Sun because it faces the Levant. At the foot of San Francesco Cathedral, the historic town begins. It's a maze of alleyways, noble houses and palaces that attest to the town's rich past and give it the appearance of a medieval city. Hermit monks that lived in caves in the surrounding mountains made this place into an important pilgrimage site. On the heights, a small church dominates the town, the Cattolica. It is in fact a Byzantine church, built between the 5th and 6th centuries. It's one of the oldest in Italy and perhaps one of the most beautiful. Inside, its miraculously preserved frescoes are true masterpieces. They represent the first Byzantine bishops, Saint Nicola, Saint Basilio, and Saint Giovanni Cristomo. At the entrance to the church, a little snack bar serves as a meeting place for thirsty visitors. But the owner is also a sculptor in his spare time. Naturally, as all Calabrians are part artist. The Ionian coast is less popular than the coast of the gods, but Soverato is an exception to the rule. This quiet little seaside resort has become the favorite destination of the east coast for Calabrians. The spit of sand that stretches into the sea is the meeting place for anglers. And today is their lucky day. Bonito, small tuna, are literally jumping onto their hooks. The seafront is lined with hotels and magnificent palaces. But Soverato is still a well-guarded secret. The beach is magnificent, and the blue of the sea is irresistible. It's a perfect place for a little bit of far niente dolce, as the Italians say. Largely unspoiled, Soverato is a choice holiday resort. Overlooking the sea, but tucked away inland, the village of Squillaci still attests to the Greek influence in Calabria. A living legend has it that Ulysses founded Squillaci during his Odyssey. But the imposing fort that looms above the town was built by the Normans in the Middle Ages. It's the Chateau of Bourges, named after the powerful aristocratic family who owned it between the 15th and 18th centuries. Built entirely in granite, the castle was very modern for its time. It had 2 bathrooms with running hot water. It was very badly damaged in the 1783 earthquake and was never rebuilt. The historic centre was built by the Byzantines in the 11th century AD. With its cascading alleyways and its tile-roofed houses, Squillaci looks like a village in the Peloponnese. In the central square stands the magnificent Santa Maria Assunta Cathedral, which was entirely rebuilt after an earthquake. Only the rose marble facade was left untouched. Squillaci has managed to preserve its tranquility and authenticity far from the tourist routes. It is, nevertheless, an important centre of ceramic production that has made its reputation. Walking through the streets, you can see the workshops of tradesmen perpetuating this age-old tradition. We have an appointment in the art shop Il Tornio with Claudio Panea and Beatrice Rosamano.
Adesso io vi farò vedere.
Now I'm going to show you this potter's wheel.
Attraverso questo attrezzo che gira, un attrezzo
It's a modern
moderno
one
perché
with a clutch accelerator.
un acceleratore in frizione dove ci
This makes the
consente
work easier,
una lavorazione più semplificata perché non
as you don't need the same physical
applichiamo lo
strength as
stesso
you did in the
sforzo
past.
fisico di come lo facevano i nostri maestri artigiani. Certamente bisogna mettere un po' di forza.
Here I have to push a little to center the loaf of clay. It's very specific work.
Quello di mettere al centro del piatto la terra,
Because if you don't center the clay on the plate,
altrimenti si rischia
your vase might slip to one side and you won't be able to make your
non
piece.
consentirebbe al maestro vasaio di produrre i pezzi.
Using a piece of rock-proof wood in the shape of a half moon, and that in dialect is called astiggia, I form the roundness. It's a water-resistant wood.
Si inizia a fare la rotondità.
It only took a few minutes for Claudio, with his expert's hands, to make this vase, but the work is far from over. It's over to Beatrice, who's in charge of decoration. With great delicacy, she draws traditional Calabrian ceramic designs that require a good deal of mastery and skill.
Una volta realizzato tutto l'ornato a mano libera, come potete
Once she's done all the drawings, as you can see, she makes the grooves.
alla graffiatura, cioè si elimina negli spazi l'ingobbio che non
This
serve.
means she removes all the excess bits so as to give luster to the patterns drawn on the clay.
Sulla superficie dell'argilla. La punta acuminata
This
serve
enhances the
per
motifs of the decoration.
il segno del disegno. Perché il taglio col bisturi deve essere un
Scraping on the clay with the scalpel must be perfect.
Sulla terra deve essere ben fatto. Successivamente alla
Then,
graffiatura
The object is left to rest for 24 to 36 hours before firing it at 1,000 degrees.
Claudio makes both everyday objects and more sophisticated pieces that are purchased by discerning collectors. Before leaving Squillaci, Claudio's son sees us off with a typical Calabrian accordion tune.
Ciao a tutti!
Still unknown, Calabria has so very many surprises in store for you. A lover of the arts, its stunning beauty will leave you with unforgettable memories. Without forgetting its wonderful landscapes and the turquoise blue waters that lap its shores. So looking towards the volcanic island of Stromboli as the sun sets on the horizon, Calabria is already calling us back for another visit.